much for coming. It's good to see a good turnout tonight, and coming to support Sandy for a talk. I'd like to start by acknowledging the land we're meeting on today, the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people, and I'd like to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and contribution they make to the life of this city and this region. We're going to have Sandy Lamb talking to us today from Microanalysis Australia, and she's going to be talking about microanalysis from the micro to the macro. So Sandy graduated from Curtin University right here with a Bachelor of Science, specialising in chemistry and biotech, and she then joined the microanalysis team in 2011 as a lab tech, and then she showed how good she was at doing scanning, electron microscopy and EDS, and now she's the analytical scientist responsible for the majority of their SEM. So yeah, I'm sure Sandy's going to give us much more information on this, so please welcome her to the mic.
So I'm from Microanalysis Australia. We're a little small business based in Mount Lawley. We do a lot of I'd say bespoke analysis. So unlike some of the big players in the industry, we're not looking at high throughput. We're looking at tailoring the analysis to what our clients need. We get a lot of stuff through where people say, "Oh, nobody else wanted to touch this," and we're like, "Yes, okay." It's got lead in it. It's got rare earth elements. It's got all sorts of stuff that's going to mess up other people's machines. Can you please have a look? And we're like, "Yeah, I guess we can stick it in the SEM. It's fine." A lot of the larger, I think, companies have set standard operating procedures, and their instruments are set up for very specific types of samples. So we get all of the stuff that they don't want, which makes for a more interesting workplace, I think. So we get all sorts of samples through. So Microanalysis Australia was founded in 2008 by Rick and his wife Debbie. And Rick used to work at CSIRO for over 20 years. And he saw that there was a place in the market for people who did want that kind of, faster turnaround times that wasn't being offered by CSIRO or by universities, really, because that's not their main goal. They're more into research and things like that. So he bought a couple of instruments. This is a little tube furnace here in the... There it is. And he also bought like a Malvern Mastersizer 2000. And he set up in his backyard under his jacaranda tree. Obviously, no health and safety was considered then, but he found that they soon outgrew their backyard very, very quickly, and they moved into Vic Park in 2009. They got their premises set up, and in 2010 they bought their first SEM, which was a Geol, which I did play with when I was there first. And very shortly after that, they hired their first full-time staff member, which is my best friend from university, and 2 months after that she said, "Hey, these guys need another person, do you want to come on board?" And I said, "Well, it sounds like a lot more fun than what I'm doing, which is weighing the same sample 10 times a day." And that was 12 years ago, so it's been a good run. We eventually expanded. We got our first XRD on site in 2012, and then after you've filled the room with too many instruments, we found that we had to once again expand the site. So we've moved to East Perth 2016, and we went for our NADA accreditation in 2019, which the process started a long time before 2019, but 2019 is when we finally managed to submit all the paperwork and got the all clear from NADA, so that was great. So once again, because Rick can't stop buying instruments, we ran out of space, and so we're now in Mount Lawley as of 2021. And as soon as we moved in, we promptly bought another one of each instrument. So yeah, we're running out of space again. Speaking of instruments, we do have some cool toys. We do run 3 SEMs, actually, one of which used to belong right here in Curtin, so we have that one now. And we do things like asbestos testing, mineralogy, metallurgy, and also testing for unknowns, and automated analysis, mineral liberation, that kind of thing. We very recently fitted an EBSD to one of our SEMs, which we're looking at expanding that field into microstructure characterization, so grain structure, orientation, and phase identification. And then we currently have 4 XRDs, some of which work. And we use those for, obviously, crystallography, mineral identification, synthetic chemical identification, and a lot of the work also comes from like corrosion products. People are like, is it an oxide, is it a hydroxide, is it carbonate? And we do get some pharmaceuticals through occasionally, not as much. We also have Rick's favorite laser diffraction, the old Malvern 2000, which has travelled from his backyard all the way to off-site and back again. So we did lose it momentarily, on its way back from an oil rig, and just like was lost for a week. They're like, oh, I don't know, the shipping thing says it should be at your lab. It's like, well, it's not here. So that's just particle size analysis. Flocculation investigations and your filtration efficiency. GCMS is an area that we have also recently started trying to expand. Just more the organic side of things that we're trying to get into, which is stuff that I don't normally touch, being mostly with the inorganic chemistry. But yes, so grease and oil analysis, quantitation of dioxins and PCBs, and characterization of things like essential oils or beer. There's a lot of stuff going on at the moment as well about PFAS. So yeah, just trying to expand that part of our offering. And FTIR is another more organic-y one, where we do polymer analysis. So, sometimes people will come to us and say, oh, like this weird stuff is oozing out of the wall. Can you tell me what it is? And I'm like, well, I'll put it in the SEM, and if it's not inorganic, then I'll put it on the FTIR, and maybe that'll tell you what it is. So it's a range of complementary equipment that can get in there and really identify those unknowns. And also optical petrography, which we offer, geology, concrete petrography, and a series of NATA accredited tests that my friend Robert here could talk to you about. No, he doesn't. I don't go into his office, so I don't know what he does. We also have a laser interferometry surface profilometry, which was a mouthful. I'm surprised I managed to pronounce that properly. And that does the high resolution topographical mapping. So we use that for like pit depth analysis in corrosion studies, and also if people have kind of novel materials that they're looking for, things like surface roughness, surface wear and things like that. And a whole list of other things, so including spectrophotometry, BET for surface area, etc. We like to collect equipment. And so what do we do with all this equipment? Occupational health and safety monitoring for asbestos, and very recently has become a big thing, crystalline silica exposure. So the industry is just catching up with that, where apparently if you grinding fake stone countertops and things like that, you release a lot of silica into the air, which is not good for you. So that's just coming into the public eye at the moment, cases of silicosis and etc. We do exploration mapping by petrography, XRD, and mineral liberation analysis. So it's a combination of all 3 techniques to give you a really good overview of what your sample is doing. Failure analysis, so fracture sites, weld failures, degradation of rubber. I think we recently had some plastic or polymer pipes that had gone into use and were showing like quite serious wear. So we did a series of tests to see whether that was due to the effects of chlorination. And then failure prevention, so you can do condition monitoring, looking at wear pattern analysis, particle counting as well to see the cleanliness of your oils. And also if you have any degradation products, we test for those. What else have we got? So patent adherence and infringement, quality control of agricultural pharmaceuticals, and building materials and reference materials. So We do go on site as well and take a lot of new build homes. The plaster isn't up to standard, it's not thick enough, it's not got enough lime, in the mix. Or recently we're having trouble with mortars now, they're being mixed in the wrong ratios for what they should be, so that's all stuff that we can go on site. We collect samples and we bring them back to the lab and we test them. And sizing, we do sizing and compositional analysis for things like dredge plume modelling, silt migration, how tailings will behave. I believe these are our NATRA accredited petrographic analyses, AS 1141.26 and AS 1141.65 for construction materials. Have I put in here? Okay, so this is an SEM image of some halloysite, which I have taken, which is a nanotube structure that forms naturally from kaolin. So this is kind of things that people have been interested in. They'll send in a sample and say, is there any presence of halloysite in the sample, or is it all kaolin, and what kind of ratios are they in? Because it's really hard to tell by methods such as XRD, which just goes off the crystal structure, because they have the exact same crystal structure. So then I'll spend some amount of time looking through the sample and see if I can find the presence of these nanotubes. So that's one of the cool things that we do on the SEM. And we also do phase mapping using the EDS. You can actually collect data about elements at every point of the field of view. And you can use that to create ternary diagrams, which will collate, whether elements are associated with each other, and it'll automatically assign like phases. So we use this for automated mineral liberation analysis. So it will tell you things about your yield, tell you things about how liberated your grains are, the minerals of interest, whether they're trapped within the grain or whether they're free for flotation. And surprisingly, asbestos testing is one of the big things that we do, and you will find asbestos pretty much everywhere. And I don't know if any of you remember, but a few years ago there was a big thing about asbestos in crayons. So we have tested many, many crayons in our lab, some of which do in fact have asbestos. But yes, asbestos is just, so we've had brake pads, we've had tiles through, we've had, what's some of the weirdest stuff, like paint. Some of the paint from back in the day will have asbestos in it. Like if you could put asbestos in something, then they would do it. So they're just like asbestos mad. So yeah, we do get quite a lot of interesting asbestos testing samples through. And sometimes we don't even need the cool toys. We do a full suite of dangerous goods testing to create material safety data sheets. And we also do a lot of the shipping tests here in Australia. We're the only lab that's NATRA accredited for transportable moisture limit. And things like dust extinction moisture, so mica content, once again, the respirable silica levels is something that people are looking at now when they're trying to ship things. And we also do a range of very simple, any physical or chemical tests like, total suspended solids, silt density indexes, loss on ignition. Those are all things that we have the capability to do at our lab. And then we bring it all together. So the consulting side of things is where we're really trying to give clients the value for their money. So figuring out like what the client needs, which isn't always what the client tells you that they want with the testing. So trying to figure out what their end goal is and then bring it all together so that their results will actually make sense to them and is useful to them. So we do, novel process and materials development, so we can test at each level of the process if the material has the attributes that they're looking for at the end product. We do creation and assessment of certified reference materials, so we can do all that testing. We can say, look, within the batch there's this much variation. SDS development is another one, which these days is very associated with shipping. Obviously, you need your SDS to be able to ship your materials, risk assessment of theoretical materials, which is always a fun one. They're like, yes, it will probably have this much of each component, and then you have to try and figure out if that's going to be dangerous in some way. Experimental design, and also we give a lot of recommendations about, after the analysis, like, are there ways that your process can change so that, you can either get rid of, sometimes it's contaminants, or ways to improve efficiency of your process. Troubleshooting is a big one, so a lot of the times we will get in samples and people will say, I found this in my tank, or, I found this in my filter, like my filter's blocked, can you tell me, like, what's on the filter, what's doing this, why is this scale on my tank, and all sorts of things, and it's usually big money kind of problems. It's like, why are the pipes failing? And so we work with our clients to try and figure out exactly, where the problem might be coming from, whether there's any factors there that can be changed or adjusted so that they can get on with doing what they're meant to be doing. And process design is the other one. And so we are actually a very small lab, but we do have unique capabilities, and we do service quite a lot of, so a lot of other labs will send us stuff that they've found a little bit weird. And a lot of the industry will send, I've seen stuff come in from almost every large company, big players here, especially with mining. So we do offer bespoke like analytical suites, just trying to make sure that you're getting the right testing for what your end goal is. Interpreting national and international kind of legislation. So, it says your product must fall within this range. Obviously, we can do the testing to make sure that it does. And if it doesn't, we can make recommendations about how, it can be better. And identification of all, I don't know about all, but of synthetic and natural mineral fibers. So a lot of the asbestos testing that's done in Australia is done by a polarized light microscopy, which doesn't always pick up all types of asbestos. And definitely if your filter is a little bit overloaded, or if you've got unusual kinds of asbestiform fibers and even synthetic mineral fibers, they can't identify that. So a lot of that stuff ends up coming to us, and we just stick that in the SEM, and we use the EDS to be able to get an idea of the elemental composition of the fibers, and then we can infer from that, what kind of asbestos you have, or if it is a synthetic mineral fiber. Or today I saw one that looked so fibrous, and it was like, that's definitely asbestos, and it wasn't asbestos, it was homicide, which is like a lithium amphibole, but not classified as asbestos. So these are all like things that the polarized light microscope can't tell you. So we get a lot of that from other labs. The interesting thing is when they try to send you the denatured membrane to stick in your SEM, because like they've already denatured it to put it on the glass slides, then you have to try and like somehow get the cover slip off and not leave the glass all over the filter, and then you've got the slide in the SEM, but the beam is just melting like the denatured membrane as you go. So it's like a race against time, whether you like find the fiber or whether you've just melted everything into a big mess on the SEM. But as I say, we do try and analyze whatever we're given. So working with difficult samples, something that we do every day. Identification of unknowns and investigative analysis. So also one of the things that we do get a lot of is people just sending in random goop that they've found. They're just like, oh, I found this rock in my caravan. Can you tell me like what it is? That was a fun one. He's like, I think it's gold. It was gold. It was fun. But yeah, so the general public also send us quite a few interesting things. So like at least once a month, you'll get something interesting from the general public. They'll say, oh, I think there's lead in my Metamucil. Yeah, or something along those lines. And what else do we do? Hazard assessment, so STS development. Environmental toxicity testing, so we do, and this is related to the next point, dissolution testing in different like media, so you can make up marine dissolution media or freshwater dissolution media to see whether your product is going to cause elevated levels of heavy metals if it was to enter into the waterways. And we have also done a few studies on biopersistence and solubility of fibers in lung fluids or stomach acid. We did recently, well not that recently, a few years ago, we did a study about pyrolusite, which is so fibrous, like it just looks so fibrous, but is not classified as a hazardous material. So we did a bunch of solubility studies to see whether it was biopersistent or not. And it turns out that it does actually dissolve like in the lungs, so that was quite interesting. And we have a lot of in-house expertise, so we employ people from a range of different disciplines. So we've got physicists, chemists, geologists, and so we like to bring it all together and try and give people the answers that they're looking for. And I think that is the end of my talk, but Terry said I had to keep talking until the pizza came, so. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Oh, thanks, Jeff.
So thank you very much for giving us a short notice. I really do appreciate it. Our other speakers that we did have involved pulled out, and so he sent you a quick call and I'll step in. So does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
Roughly what sort of number of samples would you have go through in, say, a week?
That's a tricky one. I'd say we probably go through pretty close to, like, it'll be in the hundreds, so depending on what's in at the time. So across the whole lab, it would probably be 100 to 150, maybe 200 if we're having a very busy week, kind of, yeah. So it's a low throughput kind of lab. But
when you sort of start, do you have, when you're talking about all the
Yep.
different expertise, are they
Yes.
permanent, or you bring them in as they...
no, yes, so most of our staff are permanent, either full-time or part-time. We do also employ a bunch of casual staff to do prep and some of the other like lab testing, so wet chemistry, that sort of thing. Yeah.
So ballpark figure, how many staff do you have?
Oh, 27, but yeah, a lot of those will be casuals or part-time.
No wonder you run out of room in your backyard.
Yeah, exactly. We have in fact run out of room in our new backyard because it's full of buckets of iron ore.
Do you run 24/7 or just station?
No, we do civilized business hours, 9 till 5, supposedly.
So that was kind of along where I was going to go, like how many staff and stuff. But I think you mentioned like how many different types of tests you can do. And
Yes.
So do people does a lot of people get specialised in lots of different things? Or
Yeah, we're
specialised
looking
in
to
one area?
cross-train a little more. We have in the recent past, I should say, people have been more streamlined into specialities. So like I've been running the SEM for at least the last 11 years. And then like people who were doing XRDs were mostly doing XRDs because it's hard to suddenly, I think, swap when you're really good at something. It's hard to swap into something else because you know you can do it so much faster. But I think the goal at the moment is to look into a lot more cross-training. So we do tend to hire people with more multidisciplinary kind of skills. And we have hired quite a few people from Curtin, in fact, in the past, and some of whom are still with us at the moment. So Shruti and Adriana recently have come through to us, and just the different like experiences they've had and their different backgrounds, it just brings so much expertise to the company that like it's really valuable to us to just get everybody's input. And when we have a problem, it's not just you sitting there. You just go around to the lab and you're like, what do you think I should do like with this? What's the next step? And everybody kind of chips in and says, oh yeah, maybe we could try this, or maybe we could send it off to here, or I have a contact who might know like what to do with it. So yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I've got enough on that. So you spoke about weird
Okay.
samples coming
Yes.
from general public.
Yes.
So if I was to, go campaign this week
Yes.
and find some weird animal or something,
Oh, weird,
and I
yeah,
wanna,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
want to bring it in for you to
Yep.
analyse, or
Yep.
do you give nut jobs, or
Nut
the general public
Yes.
special prices, or do they have to pay industry prices?
We give them the normal prices, but we don't have a batch fee, and we don't have an admin fee. We don't have, so the prices for the general public are the same as for a big company. Sometimes if it's really interesting, and this does happen to us a lot, like whoever's quoting the job will give a discount because they're like, oh, that's kind of fun. So not a great business model, but it does mean that we get a lot of interesting samples. And sometimes you get people come in who are just clearly need a little bit of other help, which is always hard. So I sat down with someone who said, oh, do you test like bone? And it was like, not really. It's not really our speciality, bone. And I'm like, oh, has he picked up an animal or something? And he's like, oh yeah, I just need somebody to test my bone marrow. I'm going to take a sample myself later. I'm like, I think you need to go to the hospital. But yeah, he clearly didn't trust them, and I was like, it is hard to do, to know what to do in that situation, and I think that's not something that happens to a lot of labs. I mean, some of them, but yeah, I think you just got to try and roll with it as much as you can, and if in doubt, send them to a different lab. Usually we say Chem Centre, yes. I'm like, I feel like Chem Centre could help you with that. And yes?
If you're weirdo samples,
Weirdo
that
samples,
food
yeah.
that somebody found,
Yeah.
how do you try and make sure that you're dealing with it safely when it turns up, in
Yep.
a paper bag?
Yeah, oh yeah, and this happens a lot.
No idea
Yep.
how toxic.
Yes, so we have a policy where the receptionist no longer opens any kind of parcel after people started sending us asbestos in envelopes without any other kind of, without any other kind of seal on it. So we take all of our samples into a fume hood and we make sure that we're wearing the PPE when we open them up. Most of the time you can kind of just, have a look, and if it's fairly dry, then it's not a huge problem. Like, we'll just stick it in the SEM. We do deal with, being microanalysis, we do deal with very small amounts of sample as well. But yeah, it's just a case of treating every single sample, and if you go into our sample receipt, you'll see that every single box has like unknown hazard on it, so we just treat everything as hazardous instead of assuming that everything is not hazardous. So.
Do you ever consider the radioactive aspects of it?
Yes, we do have a Geiger counter at sample receipt, so we actually currently writing a policy that says you must scan every single sample that comes in with a Geiger counter, and if it's over a certain amount, then you've got to log that into the LIMS system as being hazardous. Yeah. Yes.
Have you ever been to one of the big labs, like Bureau Veritas?
Yes, we had a lab tour at CSBP with the WA Industry Group just a few weeks ago, and that was, the scale was just, blew my mind.
The site was big enough on that too, but I mean the actual
Yeah.
Intertech, that was like a giant big barn.
Yeah.
Or a dozen trucks in there and still have plenty of room.
Yeah. I actually worked at ALS Minerals for about 2 months before I started working at microanalysis, so straight out of uni, which was a pretty big site. But as I said, they have a lot of people who just do the same thing every day, which I hate. So I love it at microanalysis because, as I said, you never know what's going to walk through the door. Literally, yes. yeah. Cool.
Have you got any other questions? If not,
can
I'd
escape.
like to say thank you very much, and thanks for stepping up and giving us a talk.